Tonight, the External Affairs Minister says St. Lucia will continue to stand in solidarity with Cuba despite planned U.S. condemnation. Bus drivers question just how they are supposed to take advantage of proposed duty-free concessions on vehicles. And former media worker turned broadcasting minister speaks on the dangers of journalism after the killing of a photojournalist in Barbados. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Thursday, the 25th of June, 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow, Channel 117. The broadcast is also being simulcast on Kiss FM, our Caribbean Hot FM mobile app, and on our Facebook page. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. External Affairs Minister Sarah Flood-Bobra has indicated that St. Lucia's ties with Cuba have existed for a long time, and recent statements by U.S. officials will not cause the country to turn its back on an ally that has given so much to St. Lucia. The U.S. has proposed legislation that will penalize any country accepting medical aid from Cuba, likening these arrangements to human trafficking. CARICOM heads will soon convene a meeting to discuss this matter. Rochelle Gonzalez begins our reporting.
External Affairs Minister Sarah Flood-Bobra is standing resolute by announcing that St. Lucia will not break ties with Cuba despite being placed under pressure by the United States to do otherwise. Earlier this week, Republican U.S. Senators Ted Cruz, representing Texas, Marco Rubio, and Rick Scott, both representing Florida, introduced in the U.S. Senate the Cut Profits to the Cuban Regime Act, which, if adopted, will penalize any government worldwide that contracts with the Cuban government for the provision of medical personnel. Among the measures that the bill, sponsored by the three senators, seeks to impose is a requirement that the Department of State publishes the list of countries that contract with the government of Cuba for their medical missions program, and that the contracts be considered as a factor in considering that country's ranking for trafficking in persons report. On Thursday, Flood-Bobra said this threat will not stop St. Lucia from standing in solidarity with a nation that has come to our aid time and time again.
You would appreciate the very close relationship we have with Cuba and the people of Cuba. That for us, Cuba is a friend, and Cuba has assisted St. Lucia in so many ways, and we certainly do not believe that all of the Cuban doctors who've worked here have been trafficked in any way. So we are very, very grateful for the long friendship and association we have with Cuba. Many of our St. Lucians receive good quality health care because many of our doctors have trained and studied in Cuba. Even with our efforts to combat COVID-19, you know that we had over 100 health professionals, doctors and nurses from Cuba, some of whom are still here. So we are very, very grateful, not just for what Cuba has done for St. Lucia, for the Caribbean, indeed for the world.
The minister said without the help of the Latin nation, many would stand to lose out.
Were Cuba not able to continue to assist in this way, it's not the Cubans who would suffer really. It's all those people who need good quality health care and whose countries are not able to provide these doctors and medical professionals. It's the people who would suffer. So, as I said, these are our thoughts on it. There will be a CARICOM position, I believe, that will be taken, and I do not want to speak at this time prematurely on anything else.
Flood-Bobra said she hopes that the relationship with Cuba remains strong, regardless of which administration is leading the nation. The bill by the three senators seeks to disregard the sovereign rights of other countries to enter arrangements with Cuba. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
Thank you, Rochelle. Many minibus operators have expressed mixed feelings about the recent announcement by Prime Minister Alan Chastanet to provide a 100% duty-free concession for the purchase of new vehicles in his budget. While many welcome the initiative, others say now is just not the right time. Genevieve Gonzague tells us more.
Prime Minister Alan Shastny, during his budget presentation, announced a 100% duty-free concession for taxi drivers and minibus operators. The second Vice President of the National Council on Public Transportation, Michael Flood, says this initiative has been in the pipeline for a while.
I am not at all surprised by the Prime Minister's announcement because all of that forms part of the negotiations we've been having with government over the last few months. What took us by surprise is we got a little more than we negotiated for. What we did was we asked government, whilst we already enjoyed a certain percentage of duty-free on new vehicles, we did ask government for a slight increase in the amount. And to our surprise, we were offered 100% duty-free.
He says the move is more than welcomed as the public transportation sector was dealt a massive blow by the COVID-19 pandemic and will go a long way in aiding drivers who want to replace their buses or those who simply want to buy another. The president of the Dennery Minibus Association, Francis Edmonds, echoed the same sentiments with Flood, stating that many drivers will use this to their benefit.
I think generally, it's a good initiative because even prior to COVID, we had a couple bus drivers who had already sold their buses and were gearing up to getting a new bus, as there was already a concession in place, but having the 100% duty, I think it is a good initiative. I think some of our guys will definitely take advantage of this initiative.
He indicated that he understands that there might be mixed feelings. However, he believes when a good offer is made, you take it if you are able to, or leave it for those who can to enjoy it. On the other hand, the PRO of the Suffer Minibus Association, Julian Snack, says at this juncture, such an initiative seems like a tease.
Well, it's not a bad thing, but it's just wrong time, wrong season for everything, because at the end of the day, which bank will give us at least money to go and purchase these buses right now? Even the buses that we have, we already own the banks on them. Nobody really has any dry cash presently to go and purchase a bus from the merchants.
Flood has urged people to think of the bigger picture and not just short-term gratification. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Information and Broadcasting Minister Dominic Fedee has used a recent tragedy in the world of regional media to highlight the dangers of being a media worker. On Monday, the 22nd of June, Bajan photojournalist Christophe Griffith was attacked and killed by an assailant while covering a homicide on the heavily wooded grounds of Bishop's Court, the derelict former residence of the Anglican Church bishop in Barbados. Griffith, who arrived at the site before the police while the assailant was apparently still present, was killed on the scene, according to law officials. Shortly before a parliament sitting at the House of Assembly on Thursday, Minister Dominic Fedee reminded journalists that they must practice caution at all times whilst on the job.
I think it's just an indication of how much journalists are on the front line all the time. We see, journalists going across the world in a lot of different territories, war zones, and covering natural disasters, and they engage in their lives to bring us stories all the time. If we go back to the banana strikes here, when there were crossfire of guns, and the banana farmers at the time were burning tires. I mean, the reporters who were covering that story were in tremendous danger of their lives because it was a very dangerous situation, and you guys are on the front line all the time.
Griffith's killer is believed to be a vagrant who was disturbed at the site by workers who came to remove asbestos. Meanwhile, the former president of the Media Association of St. Lucia is stressing on the need for media workers to come together. Miguel Fevrier calls for there to be a cohesive unit where media workers can feel safe and represented in an atmosphere where they are constant targets. Rochelle Gonzalez reports.
After a photojournalist was murdered whilst on the job in Barbados, a former president of the Media Association of St. Lucia is stressing on the need for media workers to come together. Miguel Fevrier calls for there to be a cohesive unit where media workers can feel safe and represented in an atmosphere where they are constant targets. The media fraternity in St. Lucia has been likened to a flock without a shepherd since the Media Association of St. Lucia, MASL, has been defunct for nearly 2 years. However, the murder of Christoph Griffith on Monday has led to fresh calls for actions to be taken towards turning the leaderless group into a unified force. On Thursday, the last elected MASL president, Miguel Favrier, expressed his condolences to the family of Griffith and said he can relate to his fallen regional comrade.
At 25 years old, Christoph Griffith, there are many of us, my colleagues right now, who can relate to this just if we look at the age part, because many of us would have joined this profession in our early to mid-20s, maybe late 20s, and you remember your enthusiasm in that job, a murder scene, and you run to that scene. You either want to be the first to be there or make sure you capture every scene. I was like that. I would be on every murder scene and not leave until the police have left. And then you start to think of your own experiences again and think of times when your life could have been put in that danger, whether it be through being on a scene of violence or even through carrying political stories which may not be in favor of one administration or another.
Favrier said cohesion among media colleagues is paramount in these trying times.
This, again, like I said, should be a moment for reflection for all of us, but also a moment for us to think of where are we going as a unit. As a unit, I'm talking about the ecosystem, the media ecosystem. All of us, we work for competing media houses. By the end of the day, we party together, we lime together, we call each other. For clarification on a story, we're all friends. The media owners may have their own competition, but we're all friends. And as a media person, I think those of us who are not really at the forefront of those sensational stories, those stories which may evoke a lot of reaction, either from the populists, the political parties or the supporters, we should think about our colleagues who do.
Favrier said currently there is a sense of unfairness among the media houses that leads to division since some prosper through preferential treatment whilst others get left out in the cold. This, he said, should not be the case.
I want to reach out to all my colleagues, media owners, media practitioners, all types, reporters, journalists, videographers, editors. Let's try to get together. Let's try to support each other and understand the climate, especially now as we're on the campaign trail. We've seen the attacks on me. We've seen the attacks on other colleagues, whether they're perceived to be on one political side or the other. And I keep saying, when it rains, it doesn't only rain on one person's house. Your media owner may support the sitting government and they may get the perks, the concessions, this. But what if this government leaves? The new government, the new party coming in may want to victimize you just for your beliefs. And you may want your other colleague stations to stand with you. But will they stand with you because you were there enjoying all the perks while they were being attacked and targeted? So at this point, calling on to all media professionals, let's try to get the Media Association going.
Favrier said he does not plan to apply for a second term as president. However, he is hoping for a leader who will ensure that the rights of media workers are recognized and respected. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, the opposition leader says the announced budget policies are a comfort to a fool. The government shows slate and mounts a defense. And a call for fair and balanced journalism from the Minister of Broadcasting. That and more coming up after the break.